At 2:03 a.m., the dead Ferris wheel began to turn. On its rusted support beams, someone had carved dates, each one matching a person who'd vanished from town. Southbridge, Pennsylvania, never meant to be eerie. It was an old river town. Brick mills turned into lofts, a shuttered rail spur, a park that hummed with cicadas in July and emptiness in January. At the edge of Riverview Park stood the Blue Star, a 90-foot Ferris wheel manufactured in 1974, shut down in 1999 under Pennsylvania's Amusement Ride Inspection Act, Act 85 of 1986. Inspectors cited metal fatigue, faded paint, missing lockout tags. The ride never spun again, or so everyone believed. On March 3, 2021, just after 2 a.m., 5 different 911 calls pinged the county dispatch. There was a grinding sound, then a whine, and video later showed the Blue Star's gondolas rocking as the wheel made a slow, inexorable quarter turn against the pale light of a nearby cell tower. By sunrise, the park was a knot of officers, city workers, and onlookers craning past the sawhorses. You could smell wet iron. It had rained overnight, and the National Weather Service's Harrisburg office logged wind gusts at only 6 mph. Nothing that should move a locked, decommissioned wheel. But there it was, fresh drips of grease along the axle. Security footage showed no one entering the park after midnight. No teenagers with bolt cutters. No one. I was there too. Ava Lynn, journalist at the Southbridge Ledger, a weekly with a front window that still displays a rotary phone. My brother Noah disappeared from Southbridge in 2010. The last picture of him is on that wheel, a disposable camera shot with his hair blown sideways, laughing. The city taped off the Ferris wheel's A-frame legs, and that's when a parks worker, scraping lichen off with a putty knife, found the first date, 6/12/2003, carved into the painted steel. Then 2 feet away, 10/21/2010, and lower, almost at ground level where you'd have to kneel, 4/19/2016. Each date matched a missing person from Southbridge or the county: Isabel Vega, Noah Lynn, Teresa Pang. More dates emerged as the morning wore on, a column of small, careful numerals cut over 20 years. The wheel had moved, the metal remembered, and suddenly the town did too. Southbridge rumor runs faster than fact, so I filed a right-to-know law request, Pennsylvania's Public Records Act, 65 PS, paragraph 67-101 at CQ for 911 audio, surveillance clips, the electrical schematics from the park's decommissioning. The city clerk's email pinged back 3 days later with PDFs and a terse note. No active power service at Riverview Park since 2001. See attached termination order. On paper, the Blue Star was a corpse. In person, it felt like it had a pulse. I met Eldon, white beard chewing a toothpick, at a diner off Route 15. He'd been the ride's mechanic in the 90s. Ferris wheels don't just wake up and make coffee, he said, stirring sugar into a coffee that didn't need more. You cut the juice, it's a 45,000-pound paperweight. Could it be momentum? Wind? I asked. Not unless a hurricane blew through, he snorted. And even then, the lockout arm on that gearbox? She's got a steel tongue. You'd have to disengage it. We walked the park that night. In the sweep of my flashlight, the dates glowed pale against the old paint. The numerals were precise. Someone had taken their time. Hand steady, no hesitation marks. There were initials too, faint but there. An MV next to 06/12/2003. A CP by 04/19/2016. I felt my throat go tight. I knew those letters. Parents, siblings. Eldon played his light low, squinting at the motor housing. He brushed away leaves along the back. What's that? He pressed on a panel and it flexed. Behind it, a shallow cavity. Inside, a cheap digital timer like you'd use for holiday lights, wired to an industrial contactor. The timer's LCD read 2:03 a.m., the current time. Tension peak 1. Someone wired it, I whispered. Not the city. In my apartment later, I played the 911 audio. A woman's voice, breathless. It's moving. The wheel. It's moving again. The dispatcher sounded weary. Ma'am, do you see anyone there with it? A pause. I don't know. I thought I heard singing. The clip ended in the grind of gears. I cataloged each carved date against county records. There were 12. The earliest was 6 to 12, 2003. The latest was 11/05 in 2018. Every single one matched a missing person's date of disappearance within the county. Not every missing person had a date on the steel. Only those 12. A rumor bubbled up online. A carnival worker, initials JH, had a record. Someone posted a blurry fairground photo from the 90s of a guy with a red ball cap and a cigarette. This him, they wrote? The thread had 100 comments by morning. I checked the county personnel files. There was a James Hopkins who did summer maintenance in 1998, but he moved to Florida in 2000 and died in 2012. The internet had already made him the villain. Meanwhile, the city posted a public notice. Demolition permit 21118 had been filed on February 22, 2021 to remove unsafe amusement structure at Riverview Park, with a projected teardown date in April. And there, lower than all other carvings, almost swallowed by creeping ivy, I found a new one. The paint flakes came away under my fingers. 4/19/2021. 2 weeks from now. Tension peaked too. I showed Eldon. He went quiet. Someone wants that wheel to spin again before it goes. I knocked on doors. MV was Marcos Vega. He lived in a narrow house that smelled like lemon cleaner and long habits. A framed picture of a girl with braces on the mantle, her school ID dangling from the frame. Isabel, 2003. He'd been a park groundskeeper for 30 years, retired now. I didn't do the wires, he said before I asked. He folded his hands. I can change a light bulb. Not that. Did you carve the date? I asked. He looked past me like the window had something better to say. We did, he finally said. A bunch of us. The families. Not all at once. Over the years. The room hummed with the refrigerator's motor. We met here, he said, tapping his chest, then shook his head. No. At the wheel. We held candles. We carved the dates because the town kept painting over their names. We figured you can't paint over steel. Not easy. It clicked. The initials weren't suspects. They were signatures of grief. Who wired the timer? I asked. He cracked a sideways smile that was more pain than humor. You think we didn't learn anything in 20 years? Every year on the day, we'd bring a little generator. Let it turn just once, so the town would hear. Then the city put up a fence, and we got older. It's hard to carry a generator at midnight. What about the 2:03 a.m. spin? I said. He hesitated. I didn't know about that one, he said, and I believed him. But I know who did. He gave me a name I recognized. Not a carnival worker, not a monster. A former assistant city engineer, retired, with a habit of keeping old things going, and a daughter who left in 2016 and never came back. He hadn't reported a crime. He'd built a message. He'd tapped into a temporary power line the cell tower crew installed, set a timer for 2:03 a.m., and let the wheel cry out. Why 2:03? I asked. Marcos looked at me like I was supposed to know. 0203, he said. February 3rd. Another missing date. A boy from the next town over, 19, gone in 2007. All numbers in this place were loaded. On April 5th, I filed another records request, this time for the demolition plan. The city clerk called me instead. Ava, she said, trying to sound official through a human voice. We've had a lot of calls. The commissioners want to hear from families before we proceed. The wheel's not safe, she added. If someone gets hurt. If someone stays forgotten, I said. We're already hurt. April 19th, 2021. The date in the steel. The park was ringed with people. Families wearing jackets against the river wind. A local pastor with a thermos. Teenagers filming everything. Police kept a careful distance. The demolition crew stood by with hard hats. Their cherry picker still asleep in its cradle. Sunlight made the river look like torn foil. Marcos stood with a hand on the Blue Star's leg, his fingertips on the carved 06/12/2003, as though to steady it. Eldon hovered near the motor housing, eyes on me. The former assistant city engineer, white windbreaker, knuckles like old rope, nodded once. I'd argued for days to let them do this. One last spin, not a stunt, a ritual. The county solicitor, tapping the Amusement Ride Act on his desk, said, "It's not legal." The family said, "It was never legal to lose them." We stepped back. The timer clicked, inaudible under the river, and then a relay clacked. A hum built from the base up, passing into bone. The wheels shuddered. Gondolas creaked. It turned slow, a single revolution. People cried. People laughed through it. News cameras rolled. The story leaped the county line. A network producer called and asked for my footage. I said yes, with one condition: say their names. After the turn, the power was cut. Eldon pulled 2 wires and held them up. Done, he said, and everyone exhaled. The commissioners voted that afternoon to stay the demolition for 90 days. The vote was 3-2. The city issued a press release that used the word memorial 3 times. People brought flowers, then petitions. The old security footage from the night of the 2:03 a.m. spin went to the state police. The district attorney held a press conference and promised a review of the 12 cases. It would be symbolic, he said, and also not symbolic at all. In May, a county work crew, digging along the riverbank to replace a culvert, found a canvas backpack with waterlogged notebooks inside. Teresa Pang's chemistry notes, her name in block letters on the cover. Not the ending her mother wanted, but the river had given a piece back. The wheel had kept time long enough for someone to look again. Everyone asked me what the twist was. The twist is that there wasn't a boogeyman in a red cap, and there wasn't a ghost. There were parents who learned to use a generator. There was a retired engineer who knew a timer could be louder than a siren. There was a town that forgot, and a 90-foot machine that made forgetting harder. And there was my brother's date, carved into steel, where the paint couldn't hide it. The Blue Star still stands. It will never be safe to ride, and now it's not meant to be. In August 2021, the commissioners voted to preserve it as a cold case memorial. Names were added to a bronze plaque at its base. The state gave a $25,000 grant to fence it properly, to light it from the ground, so the dates are visible without trespass. The city engineer's timer is in a cardboard evidence box. He wasn't charged. They called it improper use of municipal property and chose mercy. Legally, nothing changed overnight, but socially it did. The district attorney formed a cold case unit with 2 investigators and an intern from the community college. A pastor started a support group that meets on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. A notice board in the courthouse now shows missing persons, and when anyone last called with a tip, it's small, and it is not nothing. There's a question that floats under all of this, heavier than steel. What does a town owe its missing? If the official machinery can't turn, will we build our own rituals to keep the gears moving? Not for justice alone, but for memory? When is a timer wired at midnight a crime, and when is it a prayer? The Blue Star doesn't answer. It just turns once a year, in stories and in names, reminding us that being seen is sometimes the only beginning that matters.
Don't forget to subscribe to Real Mystery Reports for more strange, dark, and profoundly human stories. New true mysteries every day.